Thank you for joining us for this online service due to the weather. If you are joining us for the first time, I want to welcome you. Please follow the link on the screen to let us know that you are checking us out. Here at Image, we help you discover why you were created, and we believe that that is to be a disciple of Christ. That looks like loving God, loving people, and living out the gospel. We would encourage you to join a small group, as that is one of the primary ways that we grow as disciples. Today's service will look a lot like it would if we were in person together. We will sing some worship songs, we'll hear a message on leadership as we study 1 Samuel 18, and at the end, stay tuned for a financial update. I will hand it over to the team as we sing praises to the Lord and lift our hearts and voices to Him wherever you find yourself today.
I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I'm believing signs and wonders. I have resurrecting power. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever speak. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. Won't be shaken.
Thank you again for joining us for this online only service. I hope you and your loved ones are safe. We are in a series entitled The Making of a Leader, and we're looking at the life of David. Today, we are going to be in 1 Samuel 18, verses 6 through 16. And this passage, David is going to face several obstacles, not one, but several. Here's the big idea that I want to put in your hands right up front. See, God often trains his leaders not by removing obstacles, but by placing them. That's honestly not how we would prefer it. Now, we prefer God's leadership training program to look like this. Lord, I have a calling. Please clear the runway, remove the resistance, reduce the friction, and make it obvious. But so often, God does the opposite. He doesn't clear the path. He puts something in our way, not to crush you, but to shape you. And maybe as soon as I say that, you are already feeling what your obstacle is, because you're just not listening to this as a mere spectator. You're listening to this as a leader. Now, maybe you are a mom, and the obstacle is time constraints. You're juggling parenting with work and household responsibilities and whatever self-care looks like in your world. And you want to lead your kids well, but you can't be in 5 places at once. Some days you feel like the obstacle isn't just the schedule. The obstacle is you trying to do what you love with the limits that you have. Or maybe you're a mom or a dad, and the obstacle is resistance. Your kids push back on instructions, on expectations, on the we're doing this because I'm the parent. Sounds familiar? And it forces negotiation and creativity and patience you didn't even know that you needed. It's an obstacle, but it's also a training ground. Maybe you're a teacher. The obstacle is the classroom and classroom management. You're trying to keep a room full of students focused, disciplined, and safe while creating a positive environment for learning. And when behavior is disruptive or class sizes are too big, you feel like you're managing chaos with a whiteboard marker and a prayer. And the world changes again with new curriculum, new technologies, new reforms, and the obstacles become adapting to change. You have to retool, you have to redo, you have to relearn while trying to love your students well. Maybe you're an office worker and your obstacle is lack of formal authority. You're expected to lead, to influence, to take initiative and make things better, but you don't have the title. You can't just delegate. You can't just enforce. You're trying to lead sideways, peer to peer. And let's be frank, sometimes it's just exhausting. And with conflict, that comes conflict management. And when disagreements happen among equals, it's tricky because there's no formal power to enforce a resolution. You have to build trust. You have to persuade. You have to navigate personalities. Maybe you're a business owner and your obstacle is decision-making pressure. You carry high-stakes decision that affects employees' livelihood and the company's future. You don't get to opt out. You don't get to pretend that the consequences aren't real. And then you've got compliance issues and legal issues, regulations, taxes, requirements, all of it. It's complex. It's time consuming. Frankly, it's an obstacle, but it's also leadership training. Maybe you're simply trying to be a faithful Christian, and your obstacle is cultural pressure or secular values dominate so much of what we see and hear. And it can make living out your faith openly either misunderstood, mocked, or penalized. But let's be honest, some of you are just dealing with the pressure of doubt. You're not dealing with the pressure out there, you're dealing with the pressure in here. That spiritual dryness, the feeling that God is distant, wrestling with hardships, and wondering why it's not easier if God is good. And some of you are church leaders or pastors like myself, and your obstacles are high expectations, and people expect you to be a spiritual guide and a counselor, an administrator, leader, and a community presence all at once. And then, because it's church, you also get to navigate the joy of conflict management, navigating disagreements, criticisms, divisions, and wisdom and diplomacy while trying to keep our hearts soft. So here's the question. As leaders, we all face obstacles. The temptation is to respond with frustration, anger, and disappointment, and also discouragement. But what if, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We ask, how might God be using this to make me a better leader? Because in 1 Samuel 18, David is going to run into some obstacles that are not random. They are not meaningless. They are doing something in him. God is forming him. And I want to tell you a story from my own life where this became painfully real. Back in 2014, I was on staff at a church as the technical director. And for about 5 years at that point, I had been studying apologetics, been listening to podcasts, reading books, taking classes, seeking out mentors, because I wanted to better present why Christianity is true. So in 2013, I started volunteering with a ministry called Ratio Christi. Ratio Christi is a campus apologetics alliance that helps equip students and professors to address doubts and defend their faith. And at the time, I was leading a weekly discussion with about 8 students every Wednesday at lunchtime on a college campus. Now, I want to be really clear about this. Now, none of this was part of my church job. I wasn't doing any of it on church time. I wasn't neglecting my responsibilities. This was something that I was doing on my own time because I loved it, and honestly, because I felt called to it. And then one day, my supervisor at church called me into his office and told me that I had to stop volunteering with Ratio Christi. Now, that was extremely disheartening. I felt stuck. It felt like a massive obstacle had been placed right in the middle of my path, blocking something that I had a passion for, something I believed God was calling me to do. And I remember the tension in my mind. I didn't want to disobey my church supervisor, but I surely didn't want to disobey God. And so what I did was I called the president of Ratio Christi and explained the situation. He listened, he understood, and right before I hung up, he said these words that at the time honestly made no sense to me at all. He said, "Tim, give me 48 hours." What? I have no idea what he meant at the time. And I didn't know what his plan was. I just knew that I had an obstacle that I couldn't move. Sure enough, 2 days later, he called me back and said, "Come work for me." He continued on and said, "I've raised your first year salary, quit your job at the church." And boy, I was so grateful. I remember thinking, praise the Lord. God moved, God opened a door, God removed the obstacle. But that wasn't the end of the obstacles. That was just obstacle number one. So I did what he told me to do, and I gave my 6-month notice to church. And in January of 2015, I started part time at Ratio Christi. I was going to be their first community apologist, working directly with the president. I was, in a sense, his guinea pig for a new role. I was excited, I was nervous, and I was also grateful. I started to raise funds. I started to plan the year with him. And then, bam, the second obstacle showed up. The board of Ratio Christi felt that hiring me without their approval was an overreach, and they decided to fire him. And it was awful. It was awful for him, for the organization, and most importantly, it was awful for me because I had given my notice. And let's be just frank, I had mentally checked out of my role at church. I had stepped into what I believe was my calling as a shepherd and an apologist. And surely the ground shifting under my feet was not good. And then in that moment, I had to face a question that we all face sooner or later. Was this obstacle a sign from God or a sign that God had abandoned me? Or was this obstacle kind of part of the plan? Because like we're going to see in today's passage, obstacles are one of the main way that God trains his leaders, not by removing those obstacles, but by placing them. And that's exactly what David is about to experience in 1 Samuel 18. All right, let's dive into the first point. Church, let's track what's happening here. God just did the thing that everybody remembers. He struck down Goliath, and the Philistines were routed. The battle was won. The nation is breathing again, and they're coming home. Now, verse 6 says that the women came out from all the cities of Israel singing and dancing with tambourines, songs of joy with instruments. This is a victory parade. And then in verse 7, it gives us the lyrics that light the match in Saul's soul. Saul had struck down his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Now, I want you to notice something that really matters here. David didn't go looking for the spotlight. The spotlight found him. David didn't wake up that morning thinking, how can I build my platform? He woke up thinking killing Goliath was necessary, it was righteous, it was courageous, but it wasn't a marketing strategy. David was saying, how can I honor the Lord? And it wasn't the reward that Saul promised either. Saul had offered to make the man who killed Goliath wealthy and give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. That's in 1 Samuel 17:25. We looked at that last week. David wasn't driven by fame or money. He was driven by faithfulness. But now, here comes something most leaders do not know how to handle. Applause, public praise, comparison. And for Saul, that praise became an obstacle. Not for David, but for Saul's own heart. See, verse 8 tells us everything that we need to know. It says, and Saul was very angry, and this saying displeased him. And then Saul says the quiet part out loud. They have ascribed to David tens of thousands, and to me they have described thousands. And what more can he have but the kingdom? Translated into our present day, that praise is a threat. Now listen, Saul's emotional reaction is normal. It's familiar. It's human, but it is not godly. This is what happens when praise hits an insecure heart. Praise doesn't land like encouragement. It lands like competition. It doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like replacement. And I think if we're honest, we've all felt this pull. You're in a workplace and someone else gets praised and you think, well, if it weren't for me, then they wouldn't have succeeded. Have you felt like that? I'm sure I know I have felt like that in the past. If you're a parent and your spouse gets affirmed for something, that there's this little voice in you that says, must be nice. You're on a team at a church and somebody gets recognized and you feel yourself shrinking just a little because quietly you wanted that moment. Have you ever felt like that? Here's the brutal truth. That feeling might be common, but it is not the heart that God is looking for in a leader. Let me repeat that. It's common, but it's not the heart that God is looking for in a leader. Because biblical leadership is not built on ego, it's built on service. Now, people have said for a long time that leadership is influence. Fine, there's truth in that. But if you reduce leadership to just influence, you end up with a culture obsessed with attention. We already live in a world drowning in influencers. We are starving for servant leaders. Servant leaders are people who can celebrate others without dismissing them, without feeling diminished. Servant leaders can say, look at what God did through them, and they can honestly mean it. Servant leaders don't need the scoreboard to validate them because their identity is anchored somewhere deeper. And here's where it gets really personal. Some of you are trying to lead right now, and the obstacle that you're facing isn't opposition, it's praise. It's the dopamine hit of being noticed. It's the temptation to build your worth out of compliments. It's the addiction to being needed, to being admired, to being affirmed. The danger is subtle because praise feels like a reward, but it can also become a threat. Praise can make you start leading for the claps instead of leading for Christ. And once that shift happens, you stop asking, is God pleased? And you start asking, are they pleased? You stop asking, am I faithful? And you start asking, am I impressive? That's when you start believing your own press. And you believe your own press long enough, you will eventually start protecting your image more than you're protecting your integrity. I think that's really important. See, Saul hears a song, and instead of thanking God for the deliverance, he starts doing the math. Thousands versus tens of thousands. Comparison is the gateway drug to resentment, everybody. Comparison is the gateway drug to resentment. And resentment is leadership poison because resentment turns coworkers into rivals. It turns teammates into threats. It turns the mission into a stage. And that's why scripture keeps drilling this into us. Whatever we do it for the Lord. Colossians says it like this: whatever you do, work heartily for the Lord and not for men. Colossians 3:23. We just read that verse a couple days ago in our family Bible study. It really hit home. This is a recentering verse. It tells you your approval and where it comes from. It tells you who your real audience is. It tells you what success actually means. So here's the leadership move God is training into us in the moments of praise. Number one, refuse to compete with the people you're called to serve with. Number two, refuse to grasp for glory that belongs to God. And number three, learn to honor others loudly and sincerely. Praise the people on your team when they do well, celebrate the win, name the faithfulness, call out what is good. Not because you're fake, not because you're playing politics, but because you actually understand what's happening. That God is building his work through a body, not through a celebrity. David stepped up when no one else would. He trusted the Lord. He did what was right. He obeyed his calling. And now the obstacle isn't a giant sword, it's an applause melody. And this is where the sermon's big idea hits the street. God often trains his leaders not by removing obstacles, but by placing them. See, some obstacles are hard because they hurt. Other obstacles are hard because they flatter. And both can ruin you if you don't have the humility to stay anchored. So here's the transition into what's coming next. David survives Goliath, but now he must survive applause. Let's pick up in verse 9. And Saul eyed David from that day on. The next day, a harmful spirit from God came and rushed Saul, and he raved within his house while David was playing the lyre, as he did day by day. Saul had his spear in his hand. In verse 11, Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall. But David evaded him twice. Now, let's pause because this picture needs some more detail. David is not plotting. David is not campaigning. David is not whispering to people in the hallway trying to build a coalition. David is doing what he does day by day. He's playing the lyre. He's playing the guitar. He's playing his axe. He's just making music. And I need you to feel this because this is one of those moments that is easy to read too fast. David is looking at the strings, tracking the rhythm, listening to the tone, letting the melody settle in. If you've ever played an instrument, you know that feeling. There is joy in it. There's a kind of peace when your hand and your mind are kind of locked in to the music. I've experienced this a ton. And then imagine being snapped out of that moment because your king, your boss, your leader tries to kill you. Not subtly, not politically, not with a quiet plan that you discover later, but with a spear. Not a gentle death. That's not a clean death. It's a messy death. And it's not a random outburst either. Verse 9 tells us that that is settled in, has settled his posture. And Saul eyed David from that day on. That word eyed is doing a lot of work. Saul is tracking him, studying him, watching him, measuring him, suspicious of him, because jealousy is rooted in insecurity. And insecurity always looks for a target. Saul knows David is the guy. He's the hero right now. The people are singing. The momentum is shifting. And Saul is still having the crown, but David has the story. And when jealous authority takes over, the person below you becomes a threat, even if they've done nothing wrong. Let me say it this way. Sometimes obstacles, it's not the Philistines. Sometimes the obstacle is the person above you, feels threatening to you. This is leadership training in the real world. And here's why this matters for your life. Jealousy doesn't stay inside. It's always external. It always finds a way to punish somebody. Jealousy cannot celebrate. It can only compare. Jealousy hears a compliment given to somebody else and thinks, that's being taken from me. Jealousy sees someone else succeed and thinks, that makes me smaller. Jealousy turns leadership into scarcity. And Saul gives you a vivid symbol of what jealousy does to authority. The spear replaces the crown. The crown says, I am here to protect. But the spear says, I am here to control. The crown says, I'm responsible for your flourishing. The spear says, I'm terrified of your potential. That's jealous authority, everybody. Now, I want to connect this to the big idea that we started with because it lands here hard. God often trains his leaders not by removing obstacles, but by placing them. And sometimes the obstacle God places in your life is not a situation, it's a person with power over you, a threatening boss, a controlling supervisor, a jealous leader, a gatekeeper who can't understand that you might outshine them. And here's what makes this obstacle so frustrating. David didn't do anything wrong. That's what stings. If David had been arrogant, if David had been disrespectful, if David had been trying to steal Saul's throne, then you could explain the spear. But David's just playing music. This is a leadership moment where you learn something painful. Sometimes you can be faithful. You can be humble. You can be doing exactly what God called you to do and still become a target. That's not a sign God has abandoned you. That may be part of how God is forming you. And I've had to learn a version of this lesson myself. Now, the president of Ratio Christi was fired, and it left me in a very strange place organizationally and personally. The role I was offered was basically gone. I was left alone in my town to kind of fend for myself. And it was not what I was signed up for. The future I thought that I was going to be walking into suddenly changed. And I remembered watching others get promoted into roles that I honestly thought I was perfect fit for. And I'm not going to polish this story into something fake spiritual. It was humbling. It was confusing. And if I'm honest, I was jealous. And jealousy started to creep into my heart. Because when you feel displaced and when you see other people benefiting, the temptation is to narrate it into this. They're winning because I'm losing. Or worse, I deserve that more than they do. That is exactly where jealousy grows. And what God had to teach me, and it took some time, was this: humility, not jealousy, not anger, is the mark of a true leader. And let's for a second define humility, because pastors like to throw the word humility around like everyone just kind of automatically knows what it means. John Dixon, who wrote the book Humilitas, defines humility as the noble choice to forgo your status, deploy your resources, or use your influence for the good of others before yourself. Or even simpler, humility is a willingness to hold power in service to others. And I love how simple that is, because humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is thinking of yourself less. Jealousy is the opposite. Jealousy is oppressing or putting yourself over other people. It is your recognition, your status, your place. So when jealous authority rises above you, you have two options. Option number one, you can become Saul in your own heart, bitter, grasping, suspicious, defensive. Or option number two, you can become David, faithful, steady, unshaken. Refuse to return the spear for spear. Because David dodged twice, not once, twice, which tells you that this wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. And that opens the door for the rest of David's story in this chapter. Because what happens next is the run. Without David doing anything wrong. Leadership insight. And this is the point that I want you to carry. Sometimes your greatest obstacle isn't opposition. It's threatening leadership above you. And when that happens, the question isn't, how do I win? The question is, will I keep my heart clean while I'm being treated unfairly? Because that's the kind of leader God can trust with influence. And it's also the kind of leader that God uses to bless others. Let's continue reading in verse 12. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but had departed from Saul. So Saul removed David from his presence and made him a commander of thousands. And he went out and came before the people. Now, on the surface, this really sounds like a win, right? It's a promotion, a title upgrade, more influence, more responsibility. Most of us would love that. We pray for that. We hustle for that. But here's the twist that makes this an obstacle instead of a blessing. When a promotion is driven by bad motives, it can be more detrimental than beneficial. See, Saul doesn't promote David to honor him. Saul promotes David to control him. Look at verse 12 again. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but had departed from Saul. That sentence is doing a lot more than giving us information. It's exposing Saul's inner world. Saul can sense something that's different. He can sense a shift, a spiritual shift, he can feel the spiritual shift going on. And he can see favor, that David's life has the fingerprints of God on it, and Saul's life doesn't. And instead of repenting, instead of humbling himself, instead of seeking the Lord, Saul goes reactionary. He goes political. He goes managerial. He does what threatened leaders do when they can't handle the presence of someone gifted near them. They move them. See, Saul removed him from his presence. That's not mentorship. That was deployment. That's not, I want you close to me so I can shape you. That's distance. That's discomfort. That's fear. And then Saul makes him commander of thousands. Again, if you're not paying attention, you think, that's awesome. David is moving up. But if you're reading the story like a leader, you see a trap. Saul is trying to put David in a position where he either, number one, gets killed in battle, or number two, gets discredited if he refuses orders, or number three, gets isolated from Saul's court where influence is formed. It's a strategic move. It's a jealous authority move dressed up as an opportunity. It's an unfair promotion. This is one of the most common leadership obstacles in real life. Some of you know exactly what this feels like. You get promoted, but the motives above you are wrong. You step into a role not because they believe in you, but because they're trying to manage you. They're trying to move you out of the way. They're putting you somewhere that looks like honor, but functions like containment. You love the promotion, but you hate the management. And now you're in a bind because David is stuck in a way that it's hard to explain to people who don't understand the leadership dynamics. Because from the outside, everyone says, congratulations. But on the inside, it's complicated. And now David has to follow orders or he's seen as disloyal to the crown. He can't just say, I don't like what you're doing. He can't just quit. Not if he wants to remain faithful, honorable, and wise. So what does God do with this obstacle? He uses it to train David. Because remember the big idea. God often trains leaders not by removing obstacles, but by placing them. And this promotion becomes a classroom. See, David learns, number one, influence without authority. He's leading people, but he's still under a king who may not have his best interests in mind. That's real leadership training. Learning how to lead well even reminds you your authority is not ultimate, God is. Number two, responsibility without protection. He has to go out and come in before the people, meaning he's in the public now. He's visible. He's leading in front of people, but he doesn't have the security of knowing Saul is for him. That's a heavy place to live. And here's the part that you need to hear. This is the perfect setup for David's future leadership style. Because when David becomes king later, he will know what it feels like to be used by leaders instead of developed by leadership. And he will know what it's like to be promoted for someone else's agenda. He will know what it's like to carry responsibility without protection. And if he lets God do his work in him, that experience will shape him into a different kind of leader. Now, let me tie this back to my own story because it connects cleanly. When the president of Russia, Christie, was fired, there was a moment where I wanted to be promoted into a role that I thought would fit me. And looking back, I'm genuinely grateful that it didn't happen because I just didn't need that position. I needed formation. I needed time to prove my value to the rest of the team. I needed to learn how to lead when no one was applauding for me. I needed to learn how to serve without grasping because leadership positions can be traps, not blessings, if your heart isn't ready and the motives above you aren't clean. And some of you are living that right now. Your obstacle isn't a demotion. Your obstacle is a promotion with strings attached, an opportunity that comes with control, a title that comes with manipulation, a door that opens for the wrong reasons. So here's the question that can carry us forward. When God puts you in a role, especially one that's complicated, will you let that role shape your character or will you let that feed your ego? Because if you chase the position without formation, you might get the job and lose your soul. And David is being trained right here to be the kind of leader who can handle power without becoming Saul. Let's think about this transitional thought. Now, David survives the spear, and now he survives the promotion. And God is training him in public under pressure with the wrong kind of leadership over him so that one day when he has the crown, he won't lead like Saul. Let's read the text. Verse 14. And David had success in all of his undertakings, for the Lord was with him. And when Saul saw that he had great success, he stood in fearful awe of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, for he went out and came before them. Now, if you want one line that explains almost everything that follows in David's story, chapters 19 through 27, you just read it. David had success in all of his undertakings, for the Lord was with him. That line is the engine under the hood. It explains why David keeps surviving. It explains why doors keep opening. It explains why Saul's fears keep escalating. It explains why David keeps gaining the affection of the people, not because David is a genius, not because David is lucky, not because David is manipulating the system. It's because the Lord is with him. And that's exactly what drives Saul deeper into fear-based leadership. Verse 15 says, Saul stood in fearful awe of him. That's a strange phrase, and it tells us something important. That Saul isn't just angry anymore. He's not just annoyed. He's not just jealous. He's afraid. And fear-based leaders always do the same thing. They don't repent. They react. They don't shepherd. They control. They don't celebrate what is good. They suspect it. They don't deploy people. They manage threats. Saul watches David succeed, and instead of saying, thank God Israel has a future king, he thinks, I'm losing power. That's what fear does. Fear turns blessing into danger. And that's the obstacle here, not just for David, but for anyone trying to lead faithfully under fearful leadership. Because fear based leadership creates instability. You never know what version of the leader you're going to get, and it punishes success. That's one of the strangest things about insecure leadership. It can't handle excellence near it. It feels like excellence exposes it. So the leader starts to treat the gifted person like a problem to solve rather than a gift to steward. And that's why in verse 16, what it says matters so much. It reads, all Israel and Judah loved David, for he went out and came before them. That phrase, went out and came in before them, is about visibility, consistent leadership. David is present. He's with them. He's not leading them from the front. He's not hiding. He's not distant. He's not acting like he's above the people. And the people notice. Fear based leaders shrink away from the people and try to protect the image. Faith based leaders move toward people and try to protect the mission. Now, I want to tie this back to my own situation because I see it more clearly now than I did back then. Back in 2014, looking back, it seems like my supervisor was operating out of fear that I wasn't doing my job, fear that I wasn't progressing in my role. And this is my church supervisor at the time when he sat me down and said, stop serving at Ratio Christi. And he also had fear that I would eventually leave. Now, the irony is that some of those fears were probably true, or at least partially true, but they were also intensified by the very thing that he demanded, that I stop serving at Ratio Christi. He created a pressure point and then reacted to that pressure point. And I learned something painful but useful. Fear makes leaders do dumb things. Fear makes leaders tighten their grip when they should open their hands. Fear-based leadership does not produce loyalty, it produces anxiety. And that brings us back to David. Like David, I believe God was with me. Unlike David, all Israel and Judah did not love me. And that's totally fine. The point is that God's presence doesn't mean you won't face obstacles. God's presence doesn't mean you won't suffer. God's presence doesn't prevent hardship. It sustains faith through it. And that sentence is not a bumper sticker. That's survival. Some of you are suffering right now and thinking, if God is with me, why is this happening? 1 Samuel 18 answers that question in a way that we don't always like. Sometimes God is with you and the person above you is still fearful. Sometimes God is with you and the environment is still unstable. Sometimes God is with you and the obstacles keep coming. But God's presence is not proven by the absence of trouble. God's presence is proven by the endurance he gives us in that trouble. And that's what we've been seeing in this chapter. Let me summarize the leadership training God has been doing, and then we'll close. Number one, the obstacle of power. David didn't seek the spotlight. It found him. Praise can become a threat, not a reward. The test is whether you start leading for applause or for the Lord. Number two, the obstacle of a jealous leader authority. Sometimes your greatest obstacle isn't opposition, it's threatening it's the threatened leadership above you. The spear replaces the crown when insecurity takes over. Number three, the obstacle of unfair promotion. A promotion driven by bad motives can become a trap, influence without authority, responsibility without protection. God trains leaders in complicated roles. Number four, the obstacle of fear-based leadership. Saul is not leading out of faith, he's leading out of fear. And fear-based leaders don't celebrate success, they feel threatened by it. So what do we do with this? As leaders, we strive for the opposite of Saul. We strive for leadership that is rooted in faith, not in fear. We strive for humility that serves, not ego that grasps. We strive to celebrate others without feeling diminished. We strive to lead people towards God's vision, not towards our personal validation. When obstacles show up, praise, jealousy, authority, unfair promotion, fear-based leadership, we don't automatically assume God is against us. We ask a better question. How might God be using this to make me a better leader? It's really a hard question because the Lord being with David didn't prevent the spear, but it did preserve David. And the same God was with David is with his people now, not always removing obstacles, but using those obstacles to shape you through it. If you're ready to stop living in fear and start living for God, and you want God to truly walk with you wherever you are, and you haven't done this already, you can ask the Lord Jesus to be your Lord and Savior. You can affirm that you have been living apart from Him in sin, and because of His death and resurrection, which you acknowledge as true, you can give your life to Christ right now. And if that is you, please email me at info@imagechurch.live and let us know. We would love to reach out to you and help walk with you through this journey. Before we completely wrap up, I do want to take a moment to give a financial update. Yay, financial update. This is a high level look at our financial performance at Image Church. This is just meant to give you a snapshot of giving versus overall expenses. It's not meant to open the books and give you a detailed look at what is coming in and where it is being spent. We value transparency, and I would love to sit down with you or anybody else that asks and wants to look deeper at our financial picture. We aren't hiding anything by keeping this high level, just respecting everyone's time and honoring that different people value different things. So here are the numbers starting in October, kind of picking up where our last financial update was. October giving general fund was $33,021. November general fund giving was $42,547. December general fund giving was $53,297. October through the end of December benevolence giving was $4,919. Now, some of that includes the Christmas gifts that we did for the families. But we are about even as far as what is coming in for benevolence and what we have spent, and that's kind of the goal. I would also love to see more coming into benevolence. If you or anyone that you know are in need of benevolence, please email care@imagechurch.live, and we would love to help. Now, on to our spending. Spending in October was $36,634.52. Spending in November was $36,643.83. You can see we're hitting kind of a pattern there. Our spending in December was $48,111.23. So December spending was up due to some end of the year cost, staff gifts, and the Christmas gifts that we did for the family. But we still ended the year kind of in the black. Something else I'm really excited to share is that $45,111.17 has been given to our Building Hope, Building Faith campaign, which just helps kind of look forward to a new building. That money is currently in a high yield CD, so it is actually gaining interest until we need to use it. Now, I'm very pleased with that number, and I want to let you know that the team is still looking for 7-day facilities for us. That money will help us get things moving if something comes up and we need to move on it immediately. I would love to do more with local missions work. I just met with Jeff Glenn at the Charlotte Rescue Mission. So Kirk and I are working on details on how to get our small groups serving with them once a month and paying for those meals. We are still looking for people to go to Kenya, and you have until February 8th to kind of sign up or get more information about that trip. So far this year, our giving versus expenses are about even, which is normal. If you wish to give to Image Church and the work that God is doing in and through Image, please visit imagechurch.live and click Give. I hope to see you next week as we continue our series on David, and hopefully we'll be meeting in person again at the Northern Regional Recreation Center. God bless you.